everybody. Christ is risen. Blessing of the Lord be upon you. I'm Father Seraphim from New Gračanica Monastery, continuing our Bible study with the blessing of His grace, our Bishop Longin. The last time we kind of skipped over the book of Judges and the book of Ruth, saying that we are going to focus on, if we can say that, more relevant moments, instances in the Old Testament pertaining to the soteriological nature of Christ's mission that shall be revealed in the New. And for the same reasons, we are now going to slow down quite a bit. We are now at the book of Samuel, the first book of Samuel. And we are going to go through this book slowly because, as you will see, it is very relevant in so many ways. Both to that which happened already up to that point chronologically, and to what is going to happen in the New Testament, and to what happens to us to this day. So, in the first book of Samuel, chapter 1, we see his parents Elkanah, that's his father, and Hannah, his mother. Hannah wasn't able to conceive for a while, and then when they went to Shiloh to pray, to offer their sacrifice, she prayed to the Lord there and said, "Lord, if you give me a child, I will dedicate that child completely to the service of God." And before you would know it, she did conceive and have a child. So we are going to read chapter 1, verse 20. "Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come, about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord." And the name Samuel literally means asked of God in Hebrew language. Also, we shall see verses 24 through 28. "And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bullocks and 1 ephah of flour, a bottle of wine, and brought him unto the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young, just weaned. And they slew a bullock and brought the child to Eli." Eli was the priest, the high priest at that time. We will hear plenty more about him in the next few chapters. "And she, Hannah, said, My Lord, as thy soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood here by thee, praying unto the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord had given me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there." So Hannah is fulfilling her promise to dedicate Samuel, her child, very little child, just weaned, right? So couldn't be that old, and she is now leaving him in the care of Eli, the high priest, to raise Samuel in the ways of the Lord and dedicate him to the service of the Lord. In chapter 2, to paraphrase a bit before we get to reading certain verses one by one, the high priest Eli had 2 sons, and his sons sinned greatly. They were also priests, and they were supposed to be accepting the sacrifices that people would bring in. And then, at one point, whatever would be left over from those sacrifices being literally slaughtered animals, they could take some of that meat and actually consume it. This would have been, by the law, how it was intended to be, so that the priests could live off of the temple. However, they did not respect the sacrifices that people brought, and they tried to take off the sacrifices before due time, so that they would take the best part of whatever they wanted from those animals and then give the rest to God. Sounds familiar. That's kind of like Cain and Abel. Cain did not want to offer the best, but offered whatever he didn't really care for, and his sacrifice was not accepted by the Lord. In chapter 2, we shall read verses 24 through 26 that say, Eli is now speaking to his sons. My sons, for it is no good report that I hear, ye make the Lord's people to transgress. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. And the child Samuel grew on, and was in favor both with the Lord and also with men. Also, we shall read verses 27 through 36, because there is a very important lesson here to be learned. And there came a man of God unto Eli, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Did I plainly appear unto the house of thy father, when they were in Egypt, in Pharaoh's house? And did I choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer upon mine altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? And did I give unto the house of thy father all the offerings made by fire of the children of Israel? Wherefore kick ye at my sacrifice and at my offering, which I have commanded in my habitation, and honorest thy sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the chiefest of all the offerings of Israel, my people. The Lord is reminding Eli, the priest, about the honor that he bestowed upon his forefather Aaron in Egypt, all the way from Egypt. Reminding Eli that the priests could be and were and would have been taken care of by the temple, by the sacrifices, just fine. And also, very important, the Lord now says to Eli, you honor your sons above me. Wherefore the Lord God of Israel saith, I said indeed, that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me forever. But now the Lord saith, be it far from me, for them that honor me I will honor, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the days come, that I will cut off thine arm and the arm of thy father's house, that there shall not be an old man in thine house. And thou shalt see an enemy in my habitation, in all the wealth which God shall give Israel. And there shall not be an old man in thy house forever. And the man of thine, whom I shall not cut off from mine altar, shall be to consume thy eyes, and to grieve thy heart. And all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. And this shall be a sign unto thee, that shall come upon thy two sons, on Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they shall die, both of them. And I will raise me up a faithful priest, that shall do according to that which is in my heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And it shall come to pass, that every house that is left in thine house shall come and crouch to him for a piece of silver and a morsel of bread, and shall say, put me, I pray thee, into one of the priest's offices, that I may eat a piece of bread. Before we get to the big point, a smaller important point to notice here is that the Lord appointed Aaron to be the priest from Egypt, and his descendants after him. Now the Lord is telling Eli, because your sons are not doing this job correctly as they know how to do it, and you, knowing better, didn't change their ways, didn't correct them, but you, as the Lord said, honored them above me. Now this is going to end, and I shall find another priest, Samuel, of course. That's going to be that priest. So, Samuel, let's remember, is still very young. He's still a child, under Eli's care, ironically, and Eli is still educating him. Now, in chapter 3, Samuel has basically the same vision, or vision of the same content, as Eli did when a man of God visited him. So in chapter 3, we shall read verses 11 through 20. The Lord was calling Samuel, and he was so young and inexperienced, he didn't realize that the Lord was calling him. He thought that Eli was calling him. So he would run over to Eli and say, "Here I am, you called me." And Eli said, "I did not." And after 3 times, Eli told him, "It looks like the Lord is calling you. So when he does call you again, say, 'Here I am, Lord, speak.'" And the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of every one that heareth it shall tingle. In that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice nor offering forever." And Samuel lay until the morning, and opened the doors of the house of the Lord, and Samuel feared to tell Eli the vision. Then Eli called Samuel and said, "Samuel, my son." And he answered, "Here am I." And he said, "What is the thing that the Lord hath said unto thee? I pray thee, hide it not from me. God do so to thee, and more also, if thou hide anything from me, all the things that he said unto thee." And Samuel told him every whit, and hid nothing from him. And he said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seemeth him good." And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did let none of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel, from Dan even to Beersheba, knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of the Lord. The important lesson that we cannot skip here is what Eli heard twice now, that he honored his sons above the Lord. He knew that what his sons were doing was vile, to quote the Lord himself, and yet he restrained them not. These verses were used by several great saints of our church when talking about pedagogical methods, about raising of children, about the parents and the children having such understanding that would make it clear what the order of honor is. God comes first, and then people. Children can honor their parents. Children and parents can honor God. In many discourses on upbringing of children, this anecdote, this sad story, is quoted of how not to do it. People might say Eli was such a nice man or whatever, but then again, as we'll see later on in the book, King Solomon also says, "Correct your son with the rod when he is young, because he shall not die, and you will save his soul from hell." So this is why that whole judgment from the Lord is going to come upon the whole house of Eli, the priest and his sons specifically, and that arm, as the Lord said, or that branch, as he would say in the New Testament, will be cut off forever. And like he said in the vision to Samuel, no sacrifice is going to clean up this transgression. So the transgression was not only that Eli honored his own sons above God himself. Transgression was that Eli, by doing that, allowed his sons to remain vile and to desecrate the altar of the Lord and to scandalize God's people. That was spoken more specifically in the previous chapter, that their behavior didn't end with the desecration of the holy altar. They scandalized God's people in other ways as well. So now, slowly we approach the moment where these things would be fulfilled. House of Eli broken down and annihilated, and Samuel growing and growing in the eyes of the Lord. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. We'll be reading the entire chapter 4 here. This is now verse 3. And when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, Wherefore had the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hands of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh, that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. They were the ones who brought the ark. Let's see what happens. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, What meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, God has come into the camp, and they said, Woe unto us, for there had not been such a thing heretofore. Woe unto us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods, pagans, gods in plural? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Even though these pagans do not know the Lord, the one and only God, they do know that the God of Israel, the one and only Lord, is the one who struck Egypt with 10 different plagues. So they say to themselves, Be strong and quit yourselves like men, ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. Obviously, there was a point at which Hebrews, or some of them, were enslaved by the Philistines. These battles go back that far, 3,500 years now. And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent, and there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent, and with earth upon his head. And when he came, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, What meaneth the noise of this tumult? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, What is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter among the people, and thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken. And it came to pass, when he made mention of the ark of God, that Eli fell from off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck broke, and he died. For he was an old man and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered, and when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the women that stood by her said unto her, Fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Echabod, saying, The glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, The glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. The name she gave her son, Echabod, means glory is gone, without glory. So we shall pause here for tonight and see next time how the situation plays out. Samuel obviously is going to be assuming a bigger and bigger role in all of this, but those who were supposed to perish have perished, because these two vile men, the sons of Eli, brought the ark of the covenant to the battlefield. Israel lost. When things turn, they will bring back the ark, and the glory will come back to Israel. Let's keep that concept in mind. And that will be it for tonight. May the blessing of the Lord be upon all of you. Christ is risen. We'll see you next time.